Hey guys, thank you so much for clicking on this video. In today's video, as you can tell from the title, I will be discussing what a criminal defense paralegal actually does and what I wish I knew before becoming one. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Danielle. I am a criminal defense paralegal and historian. I have been a paralegal overall for 10 years. I've specifically been a criminal defense paralegal for 8.5 to 9 years. Now, if you are new to the legal field or thinking about becoming a paralegal, please watch this video. All right, guys, let's hop straight into it without any further ado. Let's get into the video. Now, the thing is, typically people who are outside of the legal sector typically think that paralegals just file paperwork all day or answer phones, much like an assistant or much like a legal assistant or an admin. However, that is like the furthest thing from the truth. So I'm going to briefly go over what it is that I actually do and what it is that I wish someone would have told me before I got into this sector. The reality of it is paralegals are responsible for investigative work, trial prep, client management, jail visits, client visits, discovery review, and essentially whatever else it is that your attorney needs help with in that moment. So a typical day for me, essentially in the morning, I like to check my emails, all of my deadlines, and then client follow-up. I also like to make sure that I am checking in with my attorney to see if they need anything for that day or if there's anything we need to circle back to or anything of the sort. So having open and effective communication is like a skill that you have got to really work and enhance in this field. My midday kind of looks like is typically discovery review, body worn footage review, and just evidence review like as a whole. So that could include, but isn't limited to, obviously video footage, but also any type of evidence or discovery that I may have on a client or for a client. So that could include medical records or things that I have subpoenaed, such as school records, medical records, jail records, anything that's essentially relating to that client for that specific case or for the specific case that I've been asked to work on. And typically in the afternoon, I like to draft my motions. I like to, communicate with my attorneys as the day is winding down. So that way the following day, I will have a list of things like to-do list or, progress notes, things of that sort. And in some cases, I like to schedule witness interviews or client interviews and things of that nature. It's really important to note that this kind of is like the foundation. However, obviously it does change on a day-to-day basis just based off of the needs of my attorneys and the clients. But at the core, these are the things that I typically do day in and day out. Obviously, I have not listed everything in this video because it would just make the video entirely too long. But essentially, like I always like to say, when you think of essentially a doctor and a nurse, that's how I like to compare paralegals to attorneys. The paralegal essentially is responsible for doing all of the groundwork to ensure that the attorney has a very strong foundation for them to, build upon. And essentially that requires a plethora of things. Some things, obviously, like I said, I did not list in this video, but I did want to give you just the meat and potatoes of it, essentially. But from these pillars, other things can, kind of come up through and by these pillars. So it's definitely on a day-to-day basis where you essentially just have to go with the flow while also staying grounded and knowing that you have foundational things that need to be completed. Moving right along to the things that I wish I knew prior to becoming specifically a criminal defense paralegal, because for my first year and a half, I worked in the civil sector, and at times that can also be trying. But for me specifically, the criminal sector and being a criminal defense paralegal, meaning that I help to, defend the accused individuals who have been accused of crimes. We help to defend them. That is a very, very emotionally draining and taxing role. I would argue that just being an attorney in general, or being in the legal field in general, is a very stressful role, just because, you know, you have a plethora of deadlines to meet, and depending on the sector of law, you have people's lives in your hands, and essentially it's just a very stressful job. It's a very high stress job, and anyone who is working in a high stress environment, be it an attorney, a paralegal, a police officer, a doctor, essentially where you have like great responsibility, it is very, very emotionally taxing. So that would be the first thing that I wish I knew, the emotional toll that it takes on you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, just all of the ways that you could possibly imagine. The second thing I wish I knew is that burnout is a very real thing. And for me specifically, on the road to burnout, I didn't realize that I was burning out, you know, because I had become accustomed to just constantly going and going and going, and not really checking my own temperature, just doing it because I could, not because it was healthy. And so in the legal field, there are deadlines that must be met. And I didn't know that I was burning out because I had been operating in that role and state for so long. To me, it didn't feel like burnout, and I was just completing my tasks, but not really checking in with my body, checking in with my mental health, checking in with my emotional health, because in this field, you have to compartmentalize. In this field, you have to meet deadlines. In this field, you have other people counting on you. And so a lot of the time you put yourself on the back burner, and it's not always intentional, you know, because you're just trying to accomplish the goal, right? So if you have motions that need to be in, legal drafts of certain documents, like you're just so conditioned to constantly going that you don't notice that you are actually burning out. And that was kind of my story. And once I realized that I was burning out, I was already burnt out. And signs of my burnout really showed in my irritability, and me just wanting to sleep all day, and me feeling an overwhelming sense of just depression, and just I was very irritable. And that's when I knew that that's not my general disposition. And so that's when I knew that I needed to peel back the layers to ensure that, you know, I was taking the proper time to heal and take care of myself, because pouring from an empty cup is not the vibe, okay? The third thing I wish I knew is that organization matters, okay? When you are in the legal field, you must be organized. It is an absolute must that you are organized, okay? Because essentially, having sticky notes all over the place, having legal pads all over the place, having this here, that there, it is very, very problematic, and you will end up confusing yourself, because there's already so much paperwork and so many documents that need to be filed, or, you know, put here and put there, that to not have it organized can really tank a case. So it's absolutely imperative that you organize accordingly. Number 4. Okay, the fourth thing I wish I knew was that in criminal defense specifically, the amount of trauma that you will see is out of this world. And I think it's really important to speak to that, because a lot of attorneys have substance abuse issues, just like a lot of officers have substance abuse issues because of the exposure to trauma, right? And when you really sit and think about it, the human mind is not, or was not, created to ingest such large volumes of trauma day in and day out. And when you think about it just from a holistic perspective, not just being at work, but then you come home and you see these things on the news, which is why I do not watch the news. You see these things on the news, you see these things all up and down and throughout your feed. You hear negative conversations. It's just a slew of negativity. And so this job specifically, criminal defense, it exposes you to just heinous crimes. And some things, you as just a normal civilian, you wouldn't be able to make up some of the things that you see, right? Like, you wouldn't imagine that people do some of the things that they do, but the reality is people do, and you will be exposed to those things either by way of discovery, either by way of speaking with the client and them describing the events that took place that led up to said event, just an array of things. And so that's something that I wish I was a lot more prepared for, because it's a lot. And so I definitely echo the sentiment that therapy is an absolute must. Not just for work stress or because you are exposed to a lot, but because life is a lot already. And then when you couple that with certain jobs, specifically what we're talking about here is criminal defense, and just, that whole sector in and of itself, it definitely weighs on you a lot more than what a normal civilian would be privy to. All right, the fifth thing I wish I knew was that criminal defense absolutely changes you. And some may argue it could change you for the worse or for the better, but I know for me personally, it's changed me for the better, I would say, in the sense that it's helped me to rationalize my expectations. Like, initially I was very naive to certain things, because I just always wanted to see the good in certain situations and in people and things of that sort. This job exposes you to reality, and it helps you step outside of your lived reality and be able to kind of have empathy and look through the lens of someone else's reality, which kind of helps you to better understand why certain choices were made and things of that sort. And it just gives you, it helps you not have such an individualistic view, It's also changed me in the sense that it has exposed me to things that I didn't know were actually possible, because I don't have any attorneys in my family. I am the first to earn my master's. I am the first in my family to earn my master's degree, let alone just attend college. And so exposure to greatness is something that I am forever grateful and thankful to and for God, first and foremost, for putting me in this position and allowing me to be in this position, but also to and for my job and the experiences that I've had by and through my job. I've learned a lot. I've had trainings. I've had the opportunity to teach other individuals. I've had the opportunity to teach baby attorneys. I've had the opportunity to teach new and incoming paralegals and interns. And so it's provided me with a plethora of opportunity and relationships that I don't feel I would have ever been able to experience if it had not been by and for and through this position. Number 6 is that the relationships that you have with your clients matter, okay? It's very important when you are dealing with people and when you're in the helping profession in general, that your overall disposition is one that is friendly, but it's one that kind of fosters relationships. You have the ability and the skill to relationship build, because that's a huge part of the job. Essentially, you can learn like the job itself, but certain things you can't be taught, right? And to have the type of people skills and the ability to build relationships with people, even if they are considered to be criminals or if they are deemed as, the worst of the worst in society, you have to be able to still remove any biases that you may have and look at them as an individual and as a person and build rapport and relationship with them. Because quite honestly, that is one of three ways that individuals are going to feel comfortable talking to you and talking to you freely and honestly. Okay, it's important to know not to talk at people. You need to talk with people. You need to allow them to feel as if they're contributing, and just relationship building is very, very important in this field. All right, number 7 is that every day is different. I kind of alluded to that earlier, but like I said, there are obviously the fundamentals that you will do day in and day out. But with that being said, there are a lot of nuances in this field. And so there's no way to like pinpoint for sure what you will do on this day, right? Like aside from obviously the foundational things and fundamental things, there you really don't know, because some things happen in trial that even the attorney isn't prepared for. Things change like that. And so you have to be able to, as I alluded to earlier, just go with the flow. And you have to be able to think quick on your feet, okay? Like no day is the same in this profession. All right, and last but not least, number 8 is that it can absolutely be a phenomenal career. Like I have made a career out of this field and I absolutely love it. Not only have I been in my role as a paralegal for 10 years, or operating as a paralegal for 10 years. From that, I've grown a business. I've grown, relationships and partnerships. And I've had just the absolute joy and pleasure of being able to maximize this field. I kind of feel like it depends on you as a person. Like this can be an endless opportunity, career path, if you utilize it to the best of your ability and make sure that whatever you're doing, it fits your needs. Some people just, come into the field, get their footing, stay for about 2 years, and then go off to law school, or they may do other things. But for me personally, I absolutely love this field, which is why I've made a career out of it. So I would highly recommend that if you're even thinking about law school, that you at least be a legal assistant for a year and a half, 2 years, to kind of get the feel of the amount of rigor that is going to take as it specifically relates to like paperwork and filing and all of those things. Because a lot of the things that paralegals do, is attorneys do. And even in law school, you're not really taught how to draft motions. Like we draft motions, we subpoena records, like we do all of the things. Essentially, girl, we do the work of the attorney just on a paralegal salary. So it's like you need to get that exposure. You should get that exposure, or even do an internship. It doesn't have to be for a year, but just get the exposure to make sure that going into law is what you want to do. Because it is very tedious, rigorous, taxing. It can be very rewarding. Obviously, when people think of attorneys, they think of the amount of money that you can make, but which is true. But also, as a paralegal, like you can make six figures as well. So it's state specific, the amount that you're able to make. Obviously, the sector that you're in, and if you're doing anything outside of the realm of your current role. But I know I live in Maryland, so in DC there are paralegal roles in the 6 figures. There's paralegal roles some people will argue they don't want to be an attorney. I know attorneys who have stopped practicing as attorneys and just became paralegals, and she's making a boatload of money. So the opportunities are endless, essentially. All right, guys, so that will conclude this video. If you or someone if you guys are thinking about becoming a paralegal or anything of the sort, please put your questions down below, because I am thinking about making this into like a series. And so I would like to have a lot of you all's questions to incorporate into my next video regarding this specifically. But if not, I'm going to just go ahead on and address some of the questions that I've either been asked on my socials, or a lot of the questions that I had when I first started and I really didn't have any answers. So like I said, please put your questions down below or even comment. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out. As you can see, I am a small-time YouTuber. We are trying to grow the channel. So please help me out. I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye.